And in a moment, I'm just going to turn the floor over to our panelists and give them a chance to introduce themselves and what media they represent in Kingston. And hopefully, give you some tips on how to better promote your arts-related events and upcoming initiatives in Kingston. So the format tonight is after the brief intros about what they do and who they represent, we'll have just a question period. This is a very informal workshop, mainly because I think a lot of the experts are out in the audience, and I would love us to share information with each other. But about a 20 or 30 minute question period that you may have for some of the folks from local media in the panel. And we'll also try to allow for some time at the end between 9:30 and 10 if you want to come and meet people in person and ask some specifics about maybe ad rates or that kind of thing. We can do that in person at the end. Some housekeeping. Come on in, guys. There's more chairs coming. Coffee and tea and water at the back. Help yourself. We are filming this tonight, and so this will be something that's posted on artskingston.ca. And Leanne from CuriousYou Productions, you can just ask to come up and talk to Leanne or myself. If you prefer not to be part of that, then we're going to be editing that later. So otherwise, it's going to be posted for the people that couldn't make it tonight. What else? I guess that's about it. So there are more chairs coming for the people that just walked in. I guess the thing I forgot to mention was after the question period, I'd just like to facilitate an open discussion. My goals for the evening are more or less for everyone to leave tonight with some new techniques on how to promote arts in Kingston, especially pertaining with communicating with our local media. Another goal is just to get to know who the local media are and meet them face to face. And number 3, like I said in the discussion, I'm hoping everyone here can share some successes and failures they've had with promoting arts events in Kingston, and we can learn from each other. I know I have lots of failures to share, so including one tonight that I'm sure you're all aware of. We'll get to that in a second. And also, after the panelists have introduced themselves, Colin Wigton from Kingston Cultural Services is going to give a short talk about with reference to the cultural plan. So I guess we'll get started, and if it's all right with our panelists, maybe we can just go down the line and some short 5-minute introductions about who you represent and what you do.
I'm Allie Hall. I'm the Arts and Entertainment Editor at the Queen's Journal. I mainly focus obviously only on arts and entertainment, so that's pretty much where I can speak to as far as the journal goes. My section, I like to think of it, I guess, as an important sort of keeper and communicator of what's happening in the Kingston art scene. In the last couple of years, we've really tried to keep it local, ears to the ground about what's going on, and then as well as some sort of larger scope coverage in Toronto and Ottawa, but mainly local. In terms of, did you want us to go into the more broader questions now, extensively, or leave it for them to ask?
It's up to you. A lot of those will come up in discussion.
Okay.
But
I guess just briefly then, we mainly email and online is sort of the direction as far as the journal is going in terms of getting in contact with us about arts events. Email is really the way that we communicate that. And also, just Greg and I sort of were talking about earlier too, in terms of the general direction of the way print is going. I think that it's important to sort of keep the email, Twitter, a lot of social media, especially for students, I know from our perspective, is super important. In terms of how we sort of are kept in the loop of what's going on, like I said, ears to the ground. A lot of it is not only through the online, but I see a lot walking around. I think one of the most helpful ways, I think, to get out there is to put posters up around campus and things like that, things that's just really getting out there, especially from an artist perspective, just doing everything you can to make everyone aware of your presence and what you're doing and your work and what you're trying to do. And it's just, there's so much happening in Kingston, it's such a vibrant scene, there's so much happening that it can be really hard, and the volume of press releases and things that we receive. That's one of the hardest parts, I think, for my job anyway. It's very sad sometimes just to see how many arts events like fly by and are underattended, and almost every event I see, there's so many people I know who would want to know about it and maybe necessarily couldn't attend. So I think just doing everything you can to get yourself out there from my perspective is probably anyway.
I'm Greg Burliak, and I'm entertainment critic from the Wig. And I've been doing this job longer than I've been alive. Since 1978, I've been covering the arts. And later, about 16 years ago, that expanded to also include restaurants and food. You know, I think the biggest problem that I face is that there's so much going on in this town, as you guys all know. It's an overabundance, not overabundance, but superabundance of cultural riches. And I've often thought, just because I've been involved personally doing things, I think Kingston is more a town of doers than goers. And I think that's the problem that you guys face a lot. You're very active, you give up your time, you put on these great events, and no one comes. And you know, I just think sometimes maybe we just have a lot more active people than spectators. And so, you know, if there's anything, you know, that I can do to help, you know, I'll try and do that. But for a long time now, the league has been understaffed. And, you know, we do what we can. But, you know, to put it very bluntly, I can write 5 stories a week. One of them's a food story, and there's 4 others. And so, do the math. There's not a lot, you know, not everybody's going to get in every day. One of the ways that we do have that people can be helped a little bit is we have a pretty extensive listing section. And for those of you who see people that I know here who use it, but for those of you who don't, it's listings@thewig.com. And if you send you know, your information about your event in, we'll try and get it in. Usually we do get it in because that's another one of my jobs, is I have to put the listings in somewhere. And we put them in, like, if you have a play that's on for 3 weeks, we put it in every day to play it. So that's not a bad thing. No, it's pretty good. Like my colleague, I rely a lot on emails because it's just one way to keep track of things. And also, I think a lot of times, one of the things that people do or don't do though is they'll just send you an email, and they think that somehow that's going to magically transpose itself into a story. Well, it's not. I need a little bit more reassurance on that, a little bit more information on that. And so for me, a personal contact of some kind always helps a lot more than just, I guess because I'm old, I need something more than just a blank email or a Twitter or whatever. I need to talk to the person. And when you send the email, I think it's really important to think about what is the most important thing that you're doing about this event. Sell, you know, I think you have to be salespeople. You have to sell your, you know, and so that, and try and think of an angle that makes it unique, and sell that angle, and then follow it up with a phone call, and tell me more about it, you know, because like I said, it's competition, and what I'm looking for each week is the 4 best stories, 4 stories that I think that my readers will enjoy the most. So I think that's important. And a lot of times if you can also, when you're sending an email, send a picture, that helps too. Because if we can't cover the event, we can perhaps at least put a picture of it in the listings. And that seems to matter quite a bit to people. I guess that's about all I'm going to say.
Great. Just before, how are people in the back doing for hearing? Okay. Just if I can encourage everyone to speak as loud as they can. Sorry, we don't have amplification tonight. Go ahead, Tori. Thanks, Greg.
I'm Tori Stafford, and I freelance mostly for Kingston this week, but a little bit for the Gannon-Aqua Reporter now, and very seldomly for the Wig. Unlike Greg, I don't have an allotted slot of areas per week. We are once weekly now as opposed to the twice weekly format that we used to be in, and we no longer have our arts insert, which we used to have. There's a lot of downsizing in Ontario papers. I'm sure that everyone is well aware of that, but that costs us in all areas, sports, a lot of arts, and there's a lot of sports and a lot of arts in Kingston, which means that everyone, like Greg said, is competing for that spot. What helps me is I do get most of my correspondence via email because I get it from my editor. In the newsroom, however, they use this thing called a fax machine a lot. It's very strange, I know. People aren't very used to it, but you wouldn't believe the amount of faxes that come into a newsroom in a day. And it's similar to what Greg said in that a stack of faxes is just that until we have a face or someone to communicate with. And the name at the bottom of the paper isn't exactly what we're looking for, because yes, we can pick up the phone and call, but we can also receive phone calls, and the more phone calls that are coming in, the more chance I have to actually have a one-on-one conversation with you and learn a little more about what it is that you're doing. An art gallery opening always sounds like an art gallery opening until I hear what the exhibition is, why you're doing it, why that would be important to Kingstonians. And I think the really important part is getting in contact with someone. I prefer to go out and do my interviews on my own, but that doesn't always fit in with the deadline thing. It's a really good idea to keep in mind when specific papers are going to press, because sending out a press release the day before we go to press does not give us very much time to get you in there. Again, Kingston this week does the same idea. We do an in the clubs listing and list arts coming up, theater stuff and things like that. Mostly we keep the emphasis on theater, and a lot of the fine arts get kind of washed over, and I think that's due to a lot of press releases being very formulaic. The who, what, when, where, why formula is really kind of, well, there's no color, and we're always looking for color and face, which is being able to identify a person or a group of people within a community that need to come to the top of the story and be what it is that you're focusing on. So I think giving us that right off the bat gives your event or your organization a little bit more drive into being put into print, because it's hard for everyone right now to get ink, including writers.
Greg, sorry, there's just one other thing I want to mention. Just sort of got my mind working. A timeline thing. All of my stories go in on Saturdays, okay? And so, for example, if the story is going into this Saturday's paper, which is the 13th, I've got to be writing it by Monday or Tuesday. So I've got to be deciding it the week before. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you've got an event, you've got to let me know. You can't let me know the week before, it's too late. It's got to be at least 2 weeks before.
Thanks. That's key information. And don't worry if you think you forgot something, because I'm sure it'll come out in the discussion and questions.
Okay,
But
sorry.
that's a great start, guys.